Hello. My name is Irene Jean Lampe. My mother is Irene Sarabia Lampe. So we have our first and last names are the same, and so people get us mixed up all the time. I'd like to preface my speech by saying, Cha'adeye Khatna'u. Please forgive me for any mistakes that I may make here today. I am not an expert on songs, and I will never call myself an expert on songs. My topic is documenting Tlingit clan songs. Born out of my desire to thoroughly understand, learn songs. And I just want to tell you a little about myself, how I got involved with songs. During my senior year in high school, I attended a workshop at the Alaska State Museum. That was a long time ago. And Cy Peck Sr. from Angoon was there telling stories. And on the very last day of that workshop, he decided to break out with song and dance. And he pointed at me like that, and he's, motioned like this. And I thought, God, is he, motioning to me? And I looked behind me, there was nobody there. I thought, no way. So I went up to him, and he handed me a drum and a drumstick and said, here, you're going to drum. Well, I had never picked up a drumstick and a drum before. And he said, just follow my hands. And so he beat his fist into the palm of his other hand like this and told me, keep rhythm. And so I did. And so just like the elders would say, watch, listen, and do, that's how I began drumming a long time ago. Every time I made a mistake, Cy Peck Sr. would look at me with a frown on his face. And I was so embarrassed, because I would miss a beat. And I realized later on that he must have thought I was my older sister, Clarissa Hudson, who was in a teenage dance group a few years earlier. So imagine my shock and surprise when I had to get up and drum in front of 40 people and never having done that before. The audience was excited and having fun. We didn't want to go home. That was my introduction to drumming. And it wasn't until 12 years later when I was at the home of Anita Lafferty with some friends, I think Patricia Walker and this is terrible. I can't even think of her name right now, Victoria Johnson, okay? My Duck Dainton clan sisters. And Anita Lafferty said, here, take this drum. You're gonna sing and dance. You're gonna sing and learn some songs. And I thought, oh, I can't turn down the elder, So I took the drum and started beating it. And we learned 2 Duck Dainton songs. And see, now I'm so nervous I can't remember what they were. So years later, over the years, I was wanting to strike up an apprenticeship with a woman. And it took me probably another 5 or 10 years maybe to get up the nerve to ask her. And finally, I just walked up to her one day and I said, you know who I am, we're distantly related. I'd like to do an apprenticeship with you. And she said, oh, I've been looking for somebody like you. This is good. Well, we tried to make arrangements to get together every so often, but for a lot of reasons it never happened. But indirectly over the years, I did learn from her, 30 years. So that was still a good thing. Because of my experience, I wrote out my research strategy to continue learning songs, and I made a vow to teach other members within my family, within my clan house, because they don't know. And so my desire to learn Tlingit songs raised my curiosity and prompted me to research all documented sources of audio and written records to date. I believe that the quality and the quantity of documentation that currently exists is incomplete. It needs more work. So let me read the abstract that you all received. Anthropologists, researchers, and Tlingit people have not focused on complete documentation of Tlingit clan songs. Existing documentation is not complete and needs considerable attention. Songs should be documented to the fullest extent possible using a set of guidelines or recommendations to preserve the songs, to enhance existing documentation, to understand the history associated with the songs, to encourage language learning, to dispel controversy, to minimize the risk of loss, and made available to clan members to ensure their continued use for future generations. Caretakers of songs have the responsibility to meet these requirements. Based on my research of existing documentation, observation of song and dance ceremonies, and personal experience to thoroughly understand Tlingit songs, I realize more work needs to be done. In my effort to revive songs that were no longer in use, I created a documentation process. A set of recommendations I believe can be used by all Tlingit Haida and Tsimshian people. So one day, I sat down and asked myself some questions. Some questions that I thought a lot of people probably ask themselves. And so you don't have to raise your hand, but these are some things I thought about. How many people want to thoroughly know a song? How many people have sung a Tlingit song and didn't know the meaning of the song, the English translation, the associated story, the history? How many people want to learn songs but are afraid to ask someone who knows songs? How many people know anything about the composer of a song? How many times have you been at an event where the translation of a song is not provided, the caretaker is not named, nor has the person indicated who gave them permission to use a song? I see many people who are drummers at different events, such as celebration, but when I go to memorial parties, why is the same person drumming for all parties, Raven and Eagle? Since there are leaders for every house, then why not different drummers for each house? Are you tired of the controversy over songs? There are probably many more questions. Then I sat down and I asked myself, oh, what kind of songs are there? So I came up with another list maker. So I came up with entrance and exit songs, songs for mourning, crying, grieving, the love, happy songs, the hat songs, Yekuti songs, thank you, appreciation songs, the outside, Gunana, Athabaskan, and Aleut songs. Songs to commemorate an event, to honor our ancestors, to grieve for lost ancestors, lost land, lost territory, to express love, appreciation, happiness, to show respect towards spirits. I've been sick the last few days, so my notes are all scattered. I was up till 2 in the morning fixing my slideshow. So I'm going to go through the current list of existing documentation that I found. Wish me luck. I hope this works. Aha. So this is just a screen print from the homepage of the 1899 Harriman expedition up the coast of Alaska. And he had stopped in Sitka, where he recorded the Tau Yacht Kagwantan song which is known as the oldest known sound recording of Tlingit, held at the University of Washington. And then in 1939, Carol Beery Davis, she was a local artist, socialite here in Juneau. She came out with a book called Songs of the Totem, and I'm not real sure if she may have gotten approval from some elders at the time here in Juneau, but there's controversy over that. And then in 1984, that page is within the book, 1939, Songs of the Totem. And in it, I don't know if you could see that, I've highlighted two phrases. We hear only the most popular songs because they are the ones used by the majority of the natives, but there are 200 or 300 in all. And then the second paragraph, during the compilation of these songs, several of our dependable singers have passed on, and it will be only a matter of a few years until the old fragments will be forgotten. So I'm sure between then and now, much information on songs has disappeared and lost forever. 1984, she expanded on the 1939 publication, and if you were to look through the booklet, she set it to musical notes for piano. And then you all know since 1982, SHI has been hosting Celebration. And so there's video, audio recordings available. But I believe only from 1990 forward. In the Dowenhauer book, Ha Tu Wanagar Yis, they refer to a number of Tlingit songs. And in the Glacier Bay Science Symposium 1993, they refer at the back of the book to two Chukanadi songs that were composed when they left, when the glacier was advancing. And I think this is from the Juneau Empire, mid-January. Uh-oh. Somebody do that. One moment. Yay. So this is an article about the Tlingit National Anthem song, published in the Juneau Empire. I believe that was January of 2000. Talks about the history. Celebration 2000, they have a publication in there about a Tlingit cradle song recorded by Lieutenant George Emmons. And then in 2003, SHI came up with the Clan Songs Project, and I think the clans that were involved were Thunderbird, Wolf, the Seagull, and I believe the Coho, but I'm not sure. I can't remember. But they have audio, visual, and text recordings. Now, when I inquired about this a few years ago, Kathy Miller was working up there, and she said I was the first Duck Dane Tom that inquired. I mean, I was just looking around on their website and saw this, and I thought, I'll look into it. I was surprised to find out I was the first one. It's been there a while. 2006, in the SHI Celebration Program booklet, there's a publication of the Thunderbird Nizi Shi Kune song and history told by Mary Clenott White. That's that one that goes, Nizi Shi Kune. And then I was really thankful to see this that came out on Roby Littlefield's email from Nora Downhauer, clarifying the use of the song, the Tlingit National Anthem. And then the latest book by the Downhauers, I'm sure they refer to Shkakuye and Kathyan, composers of two Kiksadi songs. I'm right? Those two guys. Okay. I'm sure there's history in there about them, so that was interesting to know. Okay. Every year, in the month of April, usually, Huna has the clan workshop, and so they have audio and visual recordings, and also song sheets are passed out to everybody. And then there's audio and visual recordings in private collections. I've noticed that, back up, before I go on to that next slide. There are audio and visual recordings in private collections. I've noticed that there's quite a few songs that are written in the standardized Tlingit orthography. There are song sheets that are also written phonetically. And then there are several written versions of one song in existence. I would really like people to begin using the standard Tlingit orthography, the writing system, to document their songs. Because it's much easier to learn and understand than reading something that is phonetically spelled. Anything written phonetically is inconsistent. And then one more item that I've been wanting to look at is the work of Catherine McClellan. I'm sure she's documented some songs, but I just haven't gotten around to looking at that. Oh boy. Okay. This is the program booklet from the 2007 Clan Conference, Sharing Our Knowledge. And in it, there is a primer for clan leaders. And I thought that was a good starting point for addressing the issue of controversy over songs, concerning songs. And I think that if people took that protocol, those rules and responsibilities for caring for At'u, since At'u songs are also At'u, that would really help in addressing the controversy. You know, I've heard some people say, oh, so many people have, so many people are using so-and-so's song and they never asked for permission. And, you know, and this one particular song, I won't say what it is, but it seems like a lot of people are using it, and it's been my experience that they're not saying who gave them permission. So this little booklet served as an inspiration for thinking about responsibilities of being a song caretaker. And so I highly recommend that people look at that. I think there are legitimate reasons for people to be fearful about not wanting to share songs. You know, in the past, there was lots of theft of At'u and items being stolen or sold illegally, et cetera, et cetera. But I think we have to get over that fear and move forward. And I'm an advocate for everybody learning each other's clan songs, but you just can't use it unless you get permission. So, okay. Oh, there's a page from that booklet. I want to talk about some resources about how to document, and this is a very good booklet, a book about an inch or so thick, and it's been in publication for quite some time, doing oral history. And it really helped me in writing an obituary for my father when he passed away a few months ago. When you're doing like a biography on a composer, it's sort of like thinking of writing an obituary of that person. Another book to use is interviewing, and this is one that I got from a class that I took out at UAS years ago, and just different strategies for interviewing and different for different subjects, such as job interviews. There's some good ideas in there. And then curating oral histories, I recommend this one also. Other items that are good resources on how to document, or places that offer good questions. StoryCorps, I think they have a website. I have also taken workshops on oral history and genealogy. There are online resources. Just go to Google and type in oral history. Another good thing to have is a digital voice recorder. For me, preferably, is one that is PC and Apple computer compatible. This is a photo by Case and Draper that I got from the Alaska Historical Library. If you go to state.ak.us and then click on Department of Education website and then look for Alaska Historical Library, something like that, archives, and then in the search box you can type in, oh, I don't know, Hoona or whatever, Sitka, et cetera, and you'll get a number of photos. And there were about 20 photos from Hoona. So out of Hoona comes a story that I want to tell you. I have too many papers. Wait a minute, before I tell that story. I want to talk about why songs should be documented on paper. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm really messed up here. It's here somewhere. Don't go away, folks. Oh well. Okay, why songs should be documented on paper. To clear up controversy over songs, because there's inconsistent several written versions of one song in existence. To add to and enhance existing documentation, to record old and new songs that are based on dreams, locations, oral history, clan affiliation, to honor our fathers' clans, to honor our ancestors, spirits. People desire complete info and thorough understanding of songs. They want to know what they're singing about. In the past, people were chosen for apprenticeships for a certain trade, such as a dance leader, drummer, storyteller, carver, weaver. That was their specialty. Today, not everyone has time to devote towards completion of an apprenticeship of learning to drum and sing. To perpetuate language, culture, traditions, to teach others, to preserve songs for future generations. Fluent speakers, elders are fewer and passing away. On paper, how should songs be thoroughly documented? Well, for one, you have to ask the permission from the caretaker to document a song. If that caretaker doesn't want to document their own song or their ancestor's song, they ought to find somebody else to do it for them. Now, I'm not advocating for myself because I already have a full plate. Interview elders and or knowledgeable persons. Have it in the standard Tlingit orthography system for language learners. A literal translation in English should be provided. The composer's name in Tlingit at the top with the English translation, and also the person's English name. Name of the clan that owns the song, the caretaker's name, The story, the associated story, history of the song. I'd like to see biographies of composers, possibly a pitcher. And maybe the caretaker or the composer, if it's a new song, they can sign and date it at the bottom. Visual, audio recording of the song being sung. Maybe a clan songbook. These are just ideas, these next few items. Compensate interviewees for their time, either monetarily or with a gift, because of the Tlingit belief in reciprocity, balance, giving in return, that mutual interchange, giving respect. Caretaker should compensate the person who completed the documentation. New composers are encouraged to use this method. So now I'm going to tell you a story. And it comes from the village of Huna, where my mother grew up. And this is just a photo of a photo from the panoramic photo of a celebration, I think back in the 80s. And in the center is my mother, Irene Lampe, wearing the robe of one of her uncles, and his name was John K. Smith. Llun Ish, wise father in Tlingit. And when he died, November of 1963, she was given that robe. Whew, okay. My mother sewed the seagulls on it. The robe, I am told, was constructed by John K. Smith's first wife, Elsie. And she had sewn his initials, JKS, in the lower corner. Here is a photocopy of my Aunt Catherine's handwriting. And so my mother filed it away for years to come. And she sort of forgot about it. And after my Aunt Catherine Mills passed away, the song was no longer being sung in Huna at parties. I don't recall it being sung. So a few years back, my mother was going through her files. And she handed me a file folder of song sheets. And she says, "Here, do you want these, And I said, okay. I was looking through them, and I threw the ones away that I already had. And I said, oh, what are these, She says, oh, Catherine gave those to me. And I says, well, do you know anything about them? Well, they were songs composed by John K. Smith. And I said, yeah? Well, how's the tune go? And she couldn't remember at that time. So I asked around, and everybody I asked said, no, not familiar with it. I don't know if they were lying to me or not. I have no idea. But for whatever reasons, I didn't get any yes answers. And so I held on to the songs for a while. And I also have a tape recording, cassette tape of my grandmother, Mary Sarabia, singing these two songs. And I didn't realize that I had the words and the cassette tape match, I didn't know that until one day I just happened to be listening to Grandma on cassette, and I was flipping through my songbook, and I stumbled across the song sheet that you see up on the screen, and I realized, oh, she's singing it. Here it is. Duh. We have his robe, we have Grandma singing the tape, and we have my Aunt Catherine's handwriting. So I decided to learn the tune, listening to Grandma and looking at my aunt's handwriting. Oh, and the English translation, I asked David Katzik, I don't know, about a year or two ago, to translate for me. And so the first verse, he says, He translated it as, "Many endless thanks to the children of the Duckdane Ton are coming from your older brothers' mouths. You're outstanding. It's as if I'm taking a breath about you, like when you're thinking happy thoughts about somebody and you go, oh, you know." And then the second verse, "I really hunger, desire for my grandparents and my parents' land, Glacier Bay, where I will be happy. If I die after seeing the land, I will not feel really bad." Well, I wanted to know more about this John K. Smith. And so I did all that I could to find out more about him. And I figure when he composed the song, you know, of course he was living during 1925 when the feds made Glacier Bay National Park a monument, gave it monument status. And I'm sure that broke a lot of people's hearts. So here's the second song. And I forgot to bring the translation with me, but you people who are fluent speakers who can understand the writing system probably know what it means. I've been meaning to put my voice on audio and distribute it to Duckdane Ton people. I think I already distributed this, the words to this song last year at the Hoona Clan gathering. But I'd like to find a man who has a really good voice and maybe another woman who wants to sing the, you know, what do you call it? Well, no, I want to sing the harmony. Somebody who wants to sing the melody. So yeah. so I'm taking applications. No. I always hear Albert Kukesh say that. I'm taking applications. So, thought I'd use that today. No. Anyways, I'd like to do that soon. Let me go back. So if anybody just wants to hear how this song goes today, if you want to raise your hand, otherwise I'll just say no. Okay, it goes like this. No, I'll just sing it again. I'll just sing it quietly. Unless you want me, okay, I'll drum it. I forgot my drum. I wasn't planning on doing this. Anybody got a drum? Okay. Hey, this is a man's song. This is definitely a man's song, you know, to dance to. Oh, good. It's been a while since I've looked at this, and that's why I advocate for documenting Tlingit songs on paper. I mean, I don't look at songs every day. I wish I could. Can I? Oh, well, let's see. Thank you. No. Okay. Okay, where am I? So, I wanted to know all about him, and I went to the Alaska State Library, and because I've done some genealogy on my father's side, I knew about, the U.S. Census. And so you're looking at a copy of the 1930 Census, and it was actually done in October of 1929, and a close-up image. If you can see that on the top left, there's John K. Smith, married to his first wife, Bessie. He was 48 and she was 35. And if there are any descendants of Catherine Grant, is that her name? She was a Johnson, right? I can't remember. Anyways, Sandy Johnson, if you look just a few down, he's like 3 years old. And his sister is Catherine Grant, right? Yeah. But she's like 10. Anyways, I just think that's pretty cool. So I wanted to know, how long John K. Smith lived. So he must have been, according to the 1930 census, he was 48 at the time, and so that means he was born like 1881. And so I talked to Paul and Edwina White, and because their grandparents, I believe, were both married to John K. Smith, but John K. Smith is just like their step-grandfather. So they gave me a little background. They said at one time he was a member of the Salvation Army, and he played in the band. And he is in the back row at the very top there, like one of those four heads that's sticking out on the top, and he's second from the right. And so from what I understand, he played a number of instruments: trumpet, trombone, saxophone. And by 1939, Archie White, who was holding the cane, and he was, I believe, the leader of Snail House at the time, I think he was like 90, 92 or something like that when he passed away, 1939. And Archie White in the top hat. When he passed away, John K. Smith became the house leader of Snail House. And I've always wondered who this guy was. And this picture is probably taken around the turn of the century. And I don't know who he is, but if anybody knows, I'd really like to know. I had this sneaky suspicion that's a young Archie White. Just as a side note, in that Raven Tells Stories book is The Raven, King Salmon, and the Birds, and it comes from the front of Snail House, in case anybody didn't know. So in the very center is John K. Smith. You sort of see his profile, and he's standing with the other Klan leaders at that time, Albert Jackson. And I really like this photo because he's holding a mask, and it's awfully large. And then he's in the middle behind. And here he is as an elder, sitting with J.C. Johnson in the back. So Paul and Edwina, Paul White told me he was a foreman at the AJ mine at one time, and he had this knack for learning languages. He understood Tagalog, Chinese, French, in addition to the English and Tlingit. What did I do with my notes? They're here somewhere. Don't go away. Am I going over my time? Have I taken? Oh God, I'll hurry up. Okay. So I have another song, and it's by my grandmother. Oh wait, one more thing about John K. Smith. Okay, he also traveled to Mexico. He had a photographic memory, and he became the clan leader, or the house leader, around 58 years old when Archie White passed. So a few years ago, at the party for Amos Wallace, and in memory of a few other people I cannot remember, I sang a song. And at that time, I thought it was a Gunana song, and it's not. And it sounds very similar to one that that the Coho people sing, and I can't even remember what that song is called. So I apologize to people for making a mistake, and I need to correct that. And I will print out a new a printout of her song. So this is my grandmother in the early 1900s. She's probably about, I don't know, 18. And this photo was taken by my older sister, Clarissa Hudson, probably about 1970. And so her song, it sounds like this. Ah, ha, ha, hey, ya. No, wait a moment. God. Ah, ho, ha, hey, ya. 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 Gunakchish iksatini dak dentani yatki aho ha heya chakana ye dak cha atkashi nishas idatu aho ha heya. And you just sing that over and over, and you call out your father's clan. And the translation is, according to my Aunt Catherine Mills on audio cassette tape, she said, "Thank you very much, children of the Dukdane Tan clan, that I can see you. When I'm at a different place, I sing just thinking of you." So, on to this next. This is taken from the Anchorage Daily News last year, where Barbara Franks, she used to be Barbara Whitcraft, she uses her ceremonial button robe to tell her story about healing from the death of her husband and her son's suicide. And so that reminds me of my story. And this is my robe that I asked my older sister to make for me. And I know it's tradition to ask the opposite clan to do it for you, but I felt like only my sister could do what I wanted, could represent what I wanted. And so on the top is a bald eagle emerging from the mouth of a raven, and the human head and the human hand is sitting on top of the raven, which represents me. And so this robe is based on a dream that I had, a series of 3 dreams. And the first one is where I am flying from Juneau to northeast Chichagof Island in a helicopter. And a few years after I had that dream, it did come true. I went over there with my one of my former bosses who worked for Fish and Game, and we went to tag brown bears. And so that dream came true. And so then I had a second and third dream, which started out just like the first dream. And I wondered what I was flying in. I couldn't figure it out. I didn't know if it was a helicopter or a plane or what. And I realized it wasn't I wasn't flying in anything in my dream. And I looked down and I saw wings, a wing on one side and a wing on the other, and I looked down and I saw eagle feet. And I realized it was me, and at that point I started to scream and cry and wondered, what did I do in my human lifetime to deserve to be reincarnated as a bald eagle? And that dream occurred when I was having a bad time in life, didn't want to be here anymore, wanted to check out. And I always thought, well, if I have to be reincarnated and come back to this earth, that I'd rather be an animal, preferably a bird, because birds have no baggage. We have no material. They have no material goods. So then I came up with a song, or the words to a song, and Paul Marks and Paul Jackson helped me. And it's called Raven Reincarnates as Eagle. And in English, the translation is, when I die, I will return as an eagle to my grandfather's land, and I'm referring to the Hunakwan area. You will know me when I come close to you. I will be happy to see you again. Who will throw a king salmon to me? King salmon being my favorite dish. And it's supposed to be sort of a joke. And then I call out our father's clans. And it's just based on my dream. It's not anything I hope to happen to me. Anytime soon, anyways. Want to be here for a while. So I hope you learned something from my presentation. In conclusion, I think if more people know a song, it reduces the chance of it ever being lost, even if it's written down, like what happened to the John K. Smith song and that got filed away. Even if it's written down, that doesn't mean it's going to survive. People have to continue to use and sing the song. So appreciation is needed for clan songs that remain in use today. So much more can be done to contribute to our knowledge and understanding of clan songs by way of documentation, written, audio, and visual. I'd like to hear more men singing. I'd like to hear more percussion, bentwood boxes. Whistles. I saw whistles that were originally with the Snail House of Huna, and I believe they were taken 1925 or sold or whatever, but those whistles that I saw were in the Penn Museum about 2 years ago. And then it's important to adhere to the protocols, the roles and responsibilities of caretakers. Time is not on our side. I think caretakers should document and talk to elders, people who are knowledgeable about the composers who composed songs within the last 100 years. So let's not diminish nor discard the memory of our ancestors who composed songs. And my whole purpose for being here today is not only for information sharing, but to motivate people, caretakers, to thoroughly document their songs. So, Gunath Chish, thank you. This is just some people I'd like to thank. There are probably some people that I didn't include on the screen because I forgot. And this program is dedicated to John K. Smith and Mary Wilson Brown's Arabia. Thank you for listening. If you have questions, you can just grab me in the hall, whatever. I'm really sorry I've taken up more time than I thought I would.
Shawd an éic ach tús I gú lecad Johan yadi chatini cagach tú ach I at vutu tú das dia yuchat de sak look nach sha ayachat kagwan tan yadi chatsiti ach na kahidi chayesutla a uk hit clade you do a sock. Good enough, chief. I think the young lady that came before us did a wonderful job, don't you? You need to give her another applause. Songs are part of our life. It's just like your language. All songs have stories behind them. Our elders called it Sheh Gachtutlayech. They didn't know the word compose. They built their songs. All my life, I've lived with my parents who were fluent speakers. I've heard songs all my life. I never realized that one day I was going to teach young people with my father. My father was Charlie Joseph Sr., and he's the one that left all the songs with Sitka Native Education Program. I'd like to mention that I worked for 20 years with Sitka Native Education Program, and out of it we learned songs, and it was a dream of Isabella Brady that young people would one day learn their language. And that was the first beginning. Songs weren't the first beginning, your language was. And she wanted the young people at that time, 1974, to realize who they were, where they belonged, and to have pride in themselves as being Native young people. Because when they were going to school, they didn't know whether they belonged to the Western world or our world. So began Sitka Native Education Program. In teaching the language, I'd like to introduce one of the teachers that's sitting in the background. Anne, would you stand up, please? Anne Johnson. I worked for 20 years. I retired because I have arthritis, and yet I was a dance and song instructor. But Anne has 30 years in there and still working with the young people. I give her a lot of credit for that. Through Sitka Native Education Program, we researched songs. My father recorded all kinds of songs. And in that time, we transcribed them. Vida Davis started the transcribing of the songs. She done a wonderful job. And in the middle of it, she left it for some reason. And we needed to pick it up. And the teachers, Anne and some of the other teachers, went to Sheldon Jackson to learn how to read and write the language. They were all speakers. One of them was Nellie Lord, Vida Davis, Ann Johnson, and myself. We were all speakers. We didn't know how we were going to teach the young people at that time in '74. We were a kind of grouping around, but we did the best we can in teaching our young people. And in order for them to learn the songs, they had to learn how to read. And here's a song book that has over 300 songs in it that we created. Before I start telling you more on it, we'd like to tell you a story about how Raven created song and dance. Ka-inch kanidanik.
Kuleq yuchat duwasak, Kagwantan shawu ayachat, Kukhit katsku, Hakan anak hidich satian, Sheet kak yechat yati. Atlingalalchi shach tuwuk liqe, Khat qawdawuzi, Yi in naqatu, Hashukakawushkasnigi, Yadu a. Yesh. Adelech hajias ausliechia. Chatla quaya kur e dawuz nuch. Gudach sakuziti ha atlech. Aya yi in kakwanik yakal ak. Ha in a kauslinig kalnik. Ya yesh wudua iki. Ha, Shaya deheni gao, Yire duwus gleit kach. Ach ye ya dudzi kek, Gudach sayi si kuat lech, Gudach sayi guk. Aya hashkas negi, Ya Tlingit hasati, Ya Tlingit ani ka ye wuti. Yes, you to asa, yuka. Ya Tlingitani ka adi o liech. Aya tlelku aya Tlingit kuste wegaw. Aka ya tlech akawu akuya. Ya yech yudua sayi at yekau duanik. Kushta kwani ayakua ik. Kushta kwani. Aka ayahutsu wudua ik. Yes. Tlesla de wugud. Dasa kaq has at quqwati. Kushta kuhan kisani awa you awa kadunik. Tlek tsaq shayi. Aka aya yadu khwayi khashak akku. You awadwasaku. Akawa ka ada qaqeq adutiikhnuk. Awe qaqeq adutiikh. Stakad yede at. Stakat at kagedi. Stakat at. Nel shwudlikan. Aqaye adayaka. Adekhat jenatan. You yel. Tleshkushtinich shwudliach. Ade juduatan. Nel has art awa. Ye ayosika weduhwai. Ye yanaka. Gunach sa yek qanuk qunanalchi. Ye yanaka. Ayachawa ke ua ik. Gunach sa yek qanuk qunanalchi. Yut aqayida. Kadakduna we atcha qaqayida. Tlatlash du dot qatushtir. Ayayan shawu higi. Aqawa akawa aq. Anachdur ech. Hasdur ayit. Yudua iku. Na ye shagach tuda u. Echta adi. Gudach saksha. Qajit kawasus. Wet echta adi. Chawasa qatuwasigu. Chaqut hit yik. Achaya quna ye has ua at. Ya ahas akwat echi yedi. Shikat. Chushugu aya. Yeda tu net yedat. At has art awe qawush. Nes deshe ke kauduashi. Kadeyach khatsayawlik awa. Adeyach dusayawlik awa weshik. Dakdushinu jen you at katku khatsatik kadulnegi. Just yannesh kadakit ya atlechki. Ashut kawashi just awa achtuyewuti qash atk. Chayayi dadida du tu yewuti.
Aha, katida ye gaye. Aha, katida ye gaye. Yeske kusiti kaya slishu. Yeske has sana. Aha, katida ye gaye. Aha, katida ye gaye. Yeske kusiti kaya slishu. Yeske has sana.
Gulachish. Yadu achsik.
You didn't finish.
Oh, Leslie did ya? Chadiye khanai. Aya ya du cut atle awat echi she aya tle acha ya guna ye ya wachich ya atlechi ha atlechi Chishugu yu yesh adehas awat lechi ya Ch yesu ye da tu na ye awa ya du achsik
Llaq du yuchat du asak, kagwantan ayachat, kukit ha nakahidi, ye du sagun, tlugnakhadi yadi khatsati. Gleit kag enach ye, gleit kag enach ye in kukwatu. People are always asking, where did your dancing originate from? Now, I will tell you a story that Charlie Joseph Kash'atk told us about when Raven was invited to a party. How? He would say, many times we are asked by white people, where did you learn to dance? Where did you learn from? This is our story, we that are Tlingit. It was Raven that lived on this earth, the one we call Raven, who made everything on this earth. At this time, there were no humans when dancing was suggested by Raven, as we called him. It was told that the Land Otter people invited everyone to a party. The Land Otter people at that time invited Raven to this party, but he did not want to go. He said to himself, what will they feed everyone, those little Land Otter people? They probably will only serve one gray cod head. He then sent a friend, Sea Eagle, as he was called, to the party to see what they were serving in the way of food. He found out all kinds of food was being served, ribs of all kinds. He told his friend, take me there, take me there. He came in as a blind person. He pretended to be blind. His friend took him in. Raven told him to say, where will gonna he sit? As he was told to do, he said in a loud voice, where will gonna he sit? They were sending food out to the invited guests. They were not paying any attention to him. When the party was over, Raven said, let us dance for them, he said to the people who were invited. We will dress in dance regalia. It is not known where they got their dance regalia. They started to walk from where they were dressed to the place the party had been held. As they walked, they sang an outside song. Charlie had heard this story since he was a little boy, but he did not remember the outside or the coming in songs. He only remembered the song Raven danced on. From this time, the story was known on how dancing began. It is what we are still doing today, we that are Tlingit. This is how Raven built dancing for us. Ye oa, gnulchish haq eit yisa achi.
I'd like to have ye that danced introduce yourself.
Shaqedis to you khat do sak. Chakna khatsati. Kukitana khat trukna khadia di khatsati. Kagwantan Dutch hunk. My English name is Ed Littelfield. I'm her son. Thanks.
I'd like you to give him applause. They're my apprentice. It is interesting to know how our people composed songs long ago. They built songs, and it was with stories that they created songs. Kutlech is going to distribute a song amongst you, we didn't expect this many people here, and we did the best we can in printing out a song that everybody here seems to do. In the 80s, I think it was, or the early 90s, Annabelle Revels called us at Sitka Native Education Program. She's a Kagwantan, and asked to use Tauyat, the permission. As we worked with the elders when they recorded in the 80s, they were gathering of elders that were there. In our program, the young people danced for them, starting from preschool on up through high school. The high school students done what we call the Tlingit series songs. That meant they did morning songs and yekoti. Because there was yekoti among the songs that were done, the elders felt they had to respond to it because those songs were sacred. And from that and the speeches that the elders made, the book Because We Cherish You was created. George Davis made a speech at that time. The young people fooled the elders because none of them were Tlingit speakers, but they could read and write the language good. So they really learned their songs real well. And George says, we closed the box of knowledge long ago. Tlingit kena khoyut auditancha, dejak Ed shuto atane kukaya would yakudzige yakuk. Hedi say geshagach tu tanso. We will again open the box of knowledge. That's where that speech came from when he heard the young people. And it's heard all over, and Harold Jacobs created a song from that. I know you came to learn how to write your own songs. I don't expect to teach you how to write the song. The songs that was given to you, did you save me a page? Is called Tauyat. And I want to tell you about the story. I got it in my songbook. I want to tell you about the song Tauyat. All these songs were sung to us by my dad, recorded on tape. We were amazed how accurate he was in a lot of the songs, because he was already in his 80s. We were sent a cassette tape. It was really sent to Sitka tribes of Alaska, taken off a cylinder during the late 1800s, and Tauyat was on there. My father told us the story behind it. Tauyat had a clan house in Sitka above the A&B Hall called Tlingit Halibut House. He heard about a death of his family. In them days, they didn't have the ferry running or the planes flying, so they had to rely on their own boats to go. And the weather was so bad he could not leave Sitka. He felt bad. So the verse says, "De in de taan gaan we jechim, ya achlelak has hidi, da goyesa korach sanech." He felt so bad because he could not leave. He says his grandfather's house turned over with him. It's his feelings. When you try to interpret the Tlingit language, sometimes you know what they mean if you're Tlingit, but if you're trying to do it for English, it just loses the meaning. The second verse was his wife was Salvation Army, very religious. The second verse is, "Yi atkahi nitin kwan cha'ach I chakayi dishi kagwantan yatki." With your religion, please help me, pray for me. And we'd like to do the psalm for you, and you can follow, and then I'll explain a little more on how you might be able to create your own psalm. Oh, Ed, do you want to put your blanket on and do the dance on here? We're going to have Ed do a fast dance for you guys. I think you guys all saw the play that they did yesterday, last night. Ed was Asyan in that movie. But I've known Ed since he's been a little boy. He's one of my students, and I'd like to say that New Tlingit Dance Group was created for the young people that graduated out of Ujjahin. Those of them that wanted to continue learning their songs and dances. And I have 50 in my dance group. Out of that, there's 20 graduating Ujjahin among them since the 70s. We will do the psalm for you, and if you want to follow and you know it, you can help us. Book. Have a song caller. It was explained by our elders. The song caller was a psalm sheet. So the people that were doing the psalms knew what the verse was because the song caller was calling the psalm words ahead. So we just give you a little sample of that. And in the years that I worked with Sitka Native Education Program, I not only worked with my father, but there was 3 women I also worked with, our elders. One was my own mother, Anyanakhtla, and the other one is Annie Dick. I knew her Tlingit name, but it ran away, and Elizabeth Basco. They're wonderful ladies to work with, but I'm telling you, if you're around, they'll let you know. And which is good because that's how you learn. I was pretty young in them days. They were trying to teach us how to dance. I have to tell this because they were, as a staff, they were teaching us how to dance, and we thought we were pretty good. Nellie Lord was working with us at that time. We were dancing up there on Tlingit dance, and Nellie says, "I think we're doing the wrong dance." In the Tlingit dancing, there's dances that are called kuteir, and then they're called yukunak. And we were supposed to be doing, yukunak is a sway, and kuteir is the shoulder movement. It's women's dancing. The men back the women up with their dance staffs when they dance on the sides, you see. And we were doing the shoulder movement when we were supposed to be swaying, and the elders were just looking at us from their side, you know. These are supposed to be the teachers that were teaching the young people. I don't think we have time. What time is it?
Well, she was talking about yukunak, and that's the sway, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the women just together, they're all together.
That's the only dance that the women have to be together to sway. And they have to know when they turn, and they have to turn in unison and turn the other way. It's beautiful if you do the right dancing.
And then kuteir was
The shoulder movement,
like
yeah.
this?
Mm-hmm.
I'm still being corrected. But it's something like this, and it's a jazzy song, very jazzy and a hard dance for the women. Really take good exercise.
Those are the Tlingit style. But when you do the dekina, you want to give, as long as you're demonstrating, can you give the demonstration on the dekina?
For the women?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so dekina is just straight up and down
Yeah.
instead of
And
like
you don't,
this.
the women just
Straight
don't
up
stand there while the men do all the dancing. But the women in the background also dance.
Go like this.
Okay, on the song sheet that you have before you, it says the top, I just learned this recently from Richard Donhauer. I always called it Yada Tune, and I thought it meant sing the tune. But he said it's called vocables. So when you're doing and transcribing your own songs, I encourage you to look to your clan, and if you have elders, to gather songs from them and kind of take that as a lesson on how to learn how to transcribe. It surprised me because I was doing this for a good many years already when Jeff Flair told me, he says, "Isn't it surprising when the vocables, the lines are the same as when the words come in? If you count it, you'll find it." And the only place that I found that it was different is when we transcribed the song Kakachkuk. The vocables was a little short on that one when we began. But I'm telling you, it's hard work to transcribe songs. And we were lucky because my father was still alive when we did most of the songs on transcribing. And when you do the words, make sure that you do it correctly. I try to line them up how like Yat kahini itin kwan one line. Cha ahi cha kayidi shika kwan taniyat ki. You know, to follow those lines, to follow them. We have new composers, believe it or not. Beery Davis and I did one in the 80s? In the 80s, because the young people at that time wanted to do a song for Charlie, because Charlie, that's my father, he really loved the young people, and he called them his grandchildren. He said a long time ago, the men used to shine their abalone earrings when they were going to dance. They'd shine them and they'd sparkle. And he told the young people, "You are my abalone errands." So we composed a song, Vida and I. We wrote a song from it. I'd just like to read the words to you. And we called it Qajahin. And it says, Ya Qajahin atlechki, ayayichut, tashakachtur chucht, dakat yuhan. And it says the dancers will serenade you, all of you. And then the second verse was dedicated to him. Ha-lilko gunchayecha ha-wusiti. Du atwusku hajit awati. Tlach gunal cheese. He said they were his abalone errands. He gave him his knowledge. Thank you. Those were the words that Vida and I composed for him, for them to sing to him. And he was so pleased. He was just thrilled with it. And a new composer is a boy that I worked with from 3 years old. And his name was Donachil Seik, Chuck Miller. He used to come with his mother brought him with his baby bottle. And now he's married and he's a grandpa. He composed a song for his grandmother's potlatch. He followed just the way the songs are to his grandmother. I have it here. Could you read it for me?
Ituucha kadakanch, ye I hunt chwagudi, I hidi, daktain tan yetke. You want to translate?
No, that's fine. Go ahead.
Ha teir, de tuk shkauji hit, Ikusachani luknach adi yetke, Jies ku'a, smiling Sarah, tlach gunal chish, itundatani.
That was the one that was composed by Chuck Miller, and he also composed a couple of songs. His wife has a dance group that's called Qafat Al-Taykhki. He did compose a song that was a coming in song, and I forget the other song, but he said it was okay for us to read this song to you all. And also I have one in here that's by Harold Jacobs, but I know that Harold has composed several. The Kiksadi have a dance group that's called Shit Kakwan, and he did some songs for them. And I'll have Robbie read his again to you. It's Gooch.
Goose shukashie. Yan yedi shi'aya. Yan aga kaili ach. Yan yedi yatki. Was at a kanach gooch gach sate. First verse. Ta kude yanach yisatin. Ish has shuka duct away the yatki. Yata wasa. Yata wa us ish has guji. So it's about the interior the land of the interiors.
So if you look at your words for Doyat, and you can take them along with you and kind of follow, like I said, research. Do a lot of research. And sometimes we feel, when I work with the elders, it's one of the things I have always appreciated. My boss at the time, Isabella Brady, she always put me with the elders that came to Sitka, and they'd invite them over. And when I look around today, I don't see them anymore. I was so happy to work with them, and I learned from them. I didn't realize one day I'd be an elder myself. And I'd said to myself, Ishan Yuhan if I'm an elder. So in order not to feel too bad, I try real hard to look at my life and the life of the young people. I do, like I said, I retired from Sitka Native Education, but I still do consulting. I work with a lot of the teachers. I work with, didn't she do a good job reading to you a while ago? She teaches her daughter, her son. Like I said, I've known him too since he was a baby. His mother used to do all kind of crazy things with him. If you saw him last night and play with long hair, when he was a little guy, his mother grew his hair, and I said, Robbie, you know, I think Ed needs a haircut. She said, well, I'm growing his hair so I can cut it to put it on my dance staff. And he put up with it too. If you saw their program last night, it was wonderful. I was really intrigued with it. Okay. Before I sign off, I'd like to say, when we researched for our program, we started with our preschoolers, our little children, and we told my dad, you know, the songs are a little too hard for them. Dad, didn't we have songs for little kids? He says, Hagwa. I think that said, surely we do. So I'd like to do a song for you. Those songs for children were called Tlego, lullabies. And this is one of the songs. Adu sik sawe ya inach yan leyan wasayati ye kushitlakha agwage achsik awe hu awe. I'll translate it for you. My father wrote that for us when we were us girls, sisters. I come from a family of 9. Out of the 9, there were 6 of us girls, and 3 of the boys. All my older siblings are gone now, and I was in the middle of everybody, and I thought I was the go-to-heck kid because I was in the middle of everybody. But now I find I'm the oldest among my siblings. But the song says, whose daughter is that packing up there? Is that my daughter? Is that my daughter? Yes, that's my daughter. That's my daughter. She is chubby. She is chubby. And that's a girl's lullaby, and I'd like to do a boy's lullaby for you. Handig chunetki, titsk kat achtlag siksaka, hey net wajikaka, chistain wajikaka, hi hina. We put a tape out of this. Robbie has distributed to the different people because there's no restrictions on Tlego, I believe. And in the Kit Gushihin at home, the music teacher presents one every Christmas. They do, all the children do it in Tlingit, and it really makes me feel good that they can still do it. Shakindus too would like to say something.
I've been working on doing another type of transcribing into manuscript. I went to school for music education, and they taught me how to listen to sound and put it down on paper. And I think the evolution of transcribing has come a long way, especially now since most 5th graders can plunk out a melody on a piano, or if they take lessons, they can read a little bit of music. And so if you put something that is like the children's legus down with a Western style music, they can sit down at 3 years old, or third grade, and sing their own little lullaby. And I've got 20 of the lullabies written down in manuscript paper, so anybody can read it if you'd like. I used Finale, but I can also write it out by hand too. So
if you are interested in doing precise documentation of the tune on paper, as Irene was suggesting, it's important that it be on paper as well as audio and video recordings, then there are computer software today that if you have some music background, you can do that. And that's probably important to do, because what it does is, as the Vivian said on the first day, it helps you to hold the storyline in a busy world where the stories change from one community to the next and one generation to the next, and a little too fast for us. I mean, we've been taught by our elders that we have to keep it the same. It's handed down carefully. It's precious knowledge, the stories and the songs. But in today's fast-paced world, we don't have the time to train our kids the way they did long ago. And so just in my short 20 years that I've been learning songs, I can see the songs changing, because from one generation to the next, every 5 years or so, someone puts a little twist in it because it's not written down, and they don't hear the songs the way the elders sang 10 or 20 years ago. So there's all kinds of techniques that we can use to hang on to our old style songs, and it's okay if it gets changed, as long as you know where it came from. You know the way the elders wanted you to know it, and that's my lesson that I learned.
As an elder, I feel that it makes me feel bad to see the changes, because that's one of the things when they had the elder conference, that they didn't want to see the changes in their songs, as well as their stories. You've heard it, I think you've heard the words all week, and you've heard the words of elders, and you're here because you want to learn Tlingit, you want to hear their stories, you want to hear the songs of the people that have gone before us. That's what you're here for. Try not to change them. Try to keep it the way our elders had it. How wonderful they were. How wonderful they were. To leave us such a good heritage. That's what we tell our kids. You know, we took our children one time to Angoon, and the elders, we did songs for them at the elder where they fed the elders, and they were talking in Tlingit, and I was the only one that can understand them, so I was interpreting as fast as I could to my boss Isabel. And one of the ladies says, "Here's your skid. No matter how many times you wash it, you're not going to change that color. So be proud of who you are. Be proud of who you are and keep up what you are doing, because you have." This is my word, because you all have rich heritage. You have something wonderful that our parents, their parents, and their parents before them left us. Keep it that way. We thank you for this time that you gave us. Gonna cheesh to cut you on.